video! I have some great tips for capturing a really colourful sunset.
Adorama TV presents Take and Make Great Photography with Gavin Hoey.
Hello, I'm Gavin Hoey and you're watching Adorama TV, brought to you by Adorama, the camera store that has everything for us photographers. In this video, I'm going to talk about sunsets and particularly my little technique for getting great sunsets when maybe the sunset doesn't perform the way you hope. Now, one of the things about sunsets is you just never know what you're going to get. It is a random thing of Mother Nature. And we've come out today, the end of the day, beautiful scene. An hour ago it was throwing it down with rain, now there isn't a cloud in the sky. So this is going to be the perfect time for improving my sunset in post-production. But before we get to that, I'm going to go through my tips of getting a great little sunset shot. Now, first of all, you've got to know where to shoot. So where's the sun going to set? What time is it going to set? You can look these things up before you leave, or of course you can find some great apps on your phone that will make that whole process a lot easier and allow you to plan your location. Next is going to be your gear. Now I'm going to be using my little Olympus camera here and a tripod just to give me a bit more stability. I'm also going to be shooting in RAW. That's the most important bit by far. RAW gives me the maximum amount of control when I get back onto the computer, and that is going to come in really handy because, well, I'm not expecting a massive sunset today, but we'll see. One thing to consider is the time of day you actually shoot your sunset, or of course sunrise if you can do early mornings, which I can't. I'm down here about 10 minutes before the official sunset time. If you could see the sun actually going down onto the horizon, that would be terrific. But for me, I think my best lighting is going to happen just after the sun has set. That's particularly true if you have any low clouds, because they'll still get the light even though the sun itself has dipped below the horizon line. So don't rush off. Stick around after the official sunset time. Half an hour later could be the moment where you get the best lighting. So let's just take a few pictures as the sun sets and see what we get. So one of the reasons I wanted to come out just after a rainy day is you get puddles, and puddles are great because they will reflect the light and they often come out a little bit darker than the sky as well, so you often get a richer colour that way. And if I go in close with a wide angle lens, my little puddle, that can look really enormous. And don't forget, with the dynamic range really bright between a bright sky, even at sunset, and a dark foreground, techniques like HDR can really help. Now, my Olympus has a little HDR button. I can press that and set it doing a whole bunch of HDR images, which I can then blend together to get an even better sunset. I think that looks pretty good. I'm shooting with an aperture of f11 and an ISO at 200. Now those two things should give me a good depth of field and a nice low noise image, but it would mean that I have a long shutter speed. That's why I'm using a tripod, just to keep everything nice and steady. And if you can use a tripod, that's great. Although with a sunset, you often find the aperture and the shutter speed that you get from that aperture is actually fast enough to hand hold. But, well, if you have a tripod, use it. Of course, the sunset may happen in the completely opposite direction. So now I've reversed 180 degrees. I've got my back to the sunset because I'm getting some lovely colours off these clouds. So what about focusing position? Where am I going to focus to get everything nice and sharp? Well, think about this. I'm using an f11 aperture. I've got a wide angle lens, 12mm, which is what, 24 equivalent with this Olympus lens. Everything's going to be in focus. It almost doesn't matter where your focus is going to be. So I've just left mine on the center focus point and we'll let that do the work. Because what I wanted was a giant ferry right in the middle of my shot. That was really important to me. Just to be clear, when I said earlier that we're going to enhance this in Photoshop, I don't mean we're going to completely fake it. I'm not going to take a midday picture and make it look like sunset. I want to enhance my sunset pictures. So I want to try and get the best possible shot I can before I get into Photoshop. So you might be thinking, well, what about the white balance? What's the right white balance for a sunset shot? Well, there's no real answer to that because every sunset all around the world is going to be a very slightly different colour, and the colour is a very personal perception as well. So if you're shooting JPEG, try different white balances and try some extreme ones as well. Try fluorescent, for example. However, I'm shooting in RAW. That means I choose the white balance afterwards back on the computer, and it also means I can be a bit more creative with my white balance too. That's all to come. There is an advantage to shooting HDR sequence images, even if you've no intention of making an HDR. It gives you an option to choose the best exposure back here and not in the field. So that's what I did. I'd shot bracketed shots and I'll choose one to edit. And this is going to be the one I'm going to edit. Thing is, I was shooting at 2 stop intervals, and isn't it always the way? I reckon I want to be somewhere between those 2 stops. So let's increase this exposure by a stop. That's one of the lovely things about RAW. You can do that and not really lose any quality. A few other changes to this image. Well, I want to bring the highlights back. Let's recover some of those and open up the shadows as well. There we go. Color is going to be the critical thing for my sunset. I'm going to take the saturation, which is all of the colors, and increase it a little bit, not too much. Then I'm going to take the vibrance and go to town, really giving this a bright, colourful exposure. Vibrance takes the low saturated colours and increases them first, and then the more saturated colours afterwards. Now, colour is the key to a great sunset. Now, if you live in part of the world that has wonderful coloured sunsets, I really envy you. But for me, here in the UK, yeah, that was actually probably one of the better ones I've shot. So my little trick is about adjusting colours to get a great sunset. It's all about the white balance. I'm going to come to the tint and increase the magentas. And this is what really gives my sunsets their lovely warm tones. I'm left with temperature, and if I increase the temperature, I'm going to get a warmer shot. And if I decrease it, I get a cold shot. And I actually quite like that because it gives a hint of blue in the sky and still keeps that magenta in the shadows. Now, there's a few other things I want to change. This lower right corner looks a little bit on the bright side, as does the sky. So let's see if we can deal with those. I'm just going to get the radial filter. I'll drop the exposure down maybe a stop and a half, and we'll drag out a little radial. Look at that, there we go. That works really well. We'll pop that there. Now, when you do something like that, it will change the dynamics of the shot. And I think now it looks a little bit too dark, particularly in the whites. So let's increase the whites to brighten that up. Now we're coming together really well, and I can show you before and after. That's what I shot. That's where we are with the edit. But there's one feature that can really make this picture come alive. It's a new thing called dehaze. And you find it, well, let me show you. You'll find it here under Effects, Dehaze. Now, normally you use it to cut through haze in your shots, and it's excellent at doing that by increasing the amount. But I don't really want to do that. Although I like the effect, I also like it if I reduce the dehaze just a little bit. It doesn't need to be too much. That just adds a beautiful, soft, misty feel to the image. There's a few more things to clean up, and once they're done, there it is. My final sunset image is complete. Well, there we go. I got some great sunset shots, and there's no doubt that a little bit of Photoshop post-processing really paid off. Now, if you want to see more videos from myself and the other amazing presenters right here on Adorama TV, you need to be clicking on that subscribe button right there. I'm Gavin Hoey. Thanks for watching.
Do you want great looking prints at low cost? Be sure to visit our easy-to-use online printing service. Adorama Pix has professionals who treat your images with the utmost care that you can count on. For a quick turnaround on photos, cards, or albums, use AdoramaPix.com.